When people discuss relationships between younger women and older men, the conversation often becomes trapped in surface-level explanations. People point to appearance, status, money, or social expectations. While these factors can play a role in some relationships, they rarely explain why a genuine, emotional bond develops between two people separated by 20 or 30 years. If we want to understand this dynamic honestly, we have to look beneath the obvious and examine what human beings are actually seeking in relationships. At the deepest level, most people are not searching for perfection. They are searching for safety. Not physical safety alone, but emotional safety. They want to feel that they can be themselves without constantly managing another person's reactions. They want to feel seen, understood, and accepted. This is where age can sometimes become relevant, not because age itself is attractive, but because of what it can represent. One of the most valuable things life experience can provide is emotional regulation. As people move through different stages of life, they encounter disappointment, loss, success, failure, heartbreak, and uncertainty. If those experiences are processed thoughtfully, they often produce a greater capacity to remain steady when emotions become intense. An older man who has learned from life may not react impulsively to conflict. He may not feel the need to prove himself in every disagreement. He may be more comfortable with complexity and less threatened by vulnerability. For many younger women, this kind of emotional steadiness can feel profoundly attractive. Not because it is exciting in the dramatic sense, but because it creates a sense of trust. Trust is one of the least glamorous and most powerful forces in human relationships. Without it, attraction becomes unstable. With it, attraction often deepens. Psychologically speaking, we are all affected by the emotional environments we enter. When someone consistently brings anxiety, unpredictability, or emotional chaos into a relationship, those feelings become contagious. On the other hand, when someone brings calmness, patience, and presence, those qualities also influence the relationship. Human beings regulate one another emotionally. We borrow stability from people who possess it. This is why confidence is often misunderstood. Many people think confidence means dominance, certainty, or the ability to impress others. But mature confidence is something different. Mature confidence is the ability to remain secure without needing constant validation. It is the ability to listen without becoming defensive. It is the willingness to admit mistakes without feeling diminished. A younger woman may encounter many men who are trying to convince her of their value. An emotionally mature man often does something different. He doesn't need to advertise his worth because he has already developed an internal sense of it. That difference can be felt immediately. It changes the entire emotional atmosphere of an interaction. There is also a philosophical dimension to this attraction. As human beings, we are naturally drawn toward people who appear at peace with themselves. Not because they are flawless, but because they seem integrated. Their actions, values, and identity align. There is a coherence to who they are. Many older individuals have had more time to develop that coherence. They know what matters to them and what does not. They have often stopped chasing every external measure of success and begun focusing on what gives life meaning. That sense of groundedness can be incredibly appealing. It creates a feeling that the relationship is built on something deeper than temporary excitement. It suggests the possibility of emotional partnership rather than emotional turbulence. Of course, age alone guarantees none of these qualities. Growing older does not automatically make someone wiser, calmer, or more emotionally available. Some people age without growing. What attracts others is not the number of years they have lived, but what they have done with those years. The real attraction is maturity, not chronology. And perhaps that is the most important insight of all. The qualities that create lasting attraction, stability, self-awareness, emotional presence, and inner confidence, cannot be purchased, performed, or faked. They are developed slowly through experience, reflection, and growth. In the end, people are not drawn to age. They are drawn to the depth, steadiness, and wisdom that age sometimes creates. And the question worth asking is not how old you are, but who you have become, because of the years you've lived. If emotional stability helps explain why some younger women feel drawn to older men, another equally important factor is the presence of purpose. There is something deeply compelling about a person who knows where they are going in life, not because they have every answer, and certainly not because their future is guaranteed, but because they possess a sense of direction. They are moving towards something meaningful, and that movement creates a kind of psychological gravity. Many people misunderstand attraction as a response to appearance alone. Yet when we look closely at human relationships, we find that attraction is often tied to how a person inhabits their life. We are influenced not only by who someone is, but by how they carry themselves through the world. A person with purpose communicates something powerful without saying a word. They communicate that their life has structure, intention, and meaning. This becomes particularly relevant when considering age gap relationships. One of the advantages that can come with age is clarity. After decades of experiences, successes, mistakes, and recalibrations, many older men have developed a stronger understanding of themselves. They know what they value, they know what they are willing to tolerate, and what they are not. They have often reached a stage where they are less concerned with impressing others and more concerned with living authentically. That shift creates a different kind of confidence. Confidence is frequently portrayed as charisma, boldness, or social dominance. But psychologically, true confidence has very little to do with controlling a room. Genuine confidence emerges when a person no longer needs constant reassurance about who they are. It is the quiet certainty that comes from self-knowledge. Younger women, like all people, are sensitive to this distinction. They can often feel the difference between someone who is performing confidence and someone who actually possesses it. Performance requires an audience. Authentic confidence exists whether anyone is watching or not. There is an interesting paradox here. The people who are most attractive are often those who are not obsessively trying to be attractive. They are focused on building a meaningful life. Their attention is directed toward their work, their goals, their values, their family, their passions, and their personal growth. Because their identity is anchored in something larger than external approval, they tend to appear more secure. Psychologically, this matters because certainty is calming. Human beings live with enormous amounts of uncertainty every day. We question our decisions, our future, our relationships, and even our own worth. When we encounter someone who possesses a healthy sense of direction, it can feel reassuring. Their presence reduces chaos rather than adding to it. This does not mean younger women are searching for someone to lead their lives. That interpretation misses the point entirely. Most people do not want someone to control them. They want someone who is capable of leading themselves. There is a profound difference between those two things. An older man who has cultivated purpose often demonstrates that capability. He has goals independent of the relationship. He has interests that engage him. He has responsibilities he takes seriously. He has built parts of his life that continue to matter whether he is in a relationship or not. That independence is attractive because it creates freedom rather than pressure. When a relationship becomes the sole source of meaning in a person's life, it often becomes burdened by unrealistic expectations. Every disagreement feels catastrophic. Every moment of distance feels threatening. But when two people bring already meaningful lives into a relationship, they can connect from a place of abundance rather than need. There is also a philosophical lesson hidden here. Throughout life, we are all searching for a reason to get up in the morning. We want to feel that our existence is connected to something worthwhile. Purpose is not simply about career achievement or financial success. It is about having a reason to engage with life. It is about maintaining curiosity, responsibility, and commitment to something larger than immediate gratification. Many older men who remain attractive well into later stages of life share this characteristic. They continue growing, they continue learning, they continue contributing. They do not become defined by their past accomplishments. They remain engaged with the future. That mindset creates vitality. And vitality is often far more attractive than youth itself. What ultimately draws people toward one another is not perfection, status, or age. It is the feeling that they are in the presence of someone who is fully participating in life. Someone who has not surrendered to cynicism. Someone who wakes up with intention and moves through the world with meaning. Because in the end, the most attractive thing about a person is not how young they look, it is how alive they remain. As we bring these ideas together, it becomes important to address perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of age gap relationships. People often assume that the age difference itself is the defining feature of the connection. They focus on the number of years between two individuals and treat that number as if it explains everything. But from a psychological perspective, age is rarely the most important factor. What determines whether a relationship thrives or struggles is something much deeper: the quality of the dynamic between the two people. The relationships that endure are not built on fascination alone. They are not sustained by novelty, admiration, or fantasy. Those things may create initial attraction, but they are not strong enough to support a meaningful partnership over time. Eventually, every relationship reaches a point where the excitement of difference fades, and what remains is the reality of two human beings trying to understand one another. This is where mutual respect becomes essential. Respect is one of those concepts that sounds simple until we examine it closely. Many people confuse respect with approval or admiration, but genuine respect means recognizing another person's inner world as real and valuable as your own. It means acknowledging that their thoughts, feelings, ambitions, fears, and experiences matter. In relationships with significant age differences, this becomes especially important. The older partner may have more life experience, but experience should never become a reason to dismiss another person's perspective. Wisdom is not demonstrated by speaking more loudly or claiming greater authority. Wisdom is demonstrated by remaining curious, even when you believe you already know the answer. A younger woman who enters a relationship with an older man does not want to be treated as a project to be shaped or corrected. She wants to be understood. She wants her individuality to be recognized. She wants to feel that her voice carries weight within the relationship. Psychologically, people flourish when they feel seen. Not idealized, not controlled, not managed, seen. There is a profound difference. Being idealized means someone is in love with an image of you. Being seen means someone is willing to know who you actually are. This distinction matters because many relationships fail when one partner becomes attached to a fantasy. Sometimes an older man becomes attracted to what youth represents rather than the person herself. Sometimes a younger woman becomes attracted to what maturity symbolizes rather than the actual man standing before her. In both cases, the relationship is built on projection rather than reality. Healthy relationships require the courage to move beyond projection. That courage involves accepting complexity. It means recognizing that every individual contains contradictions, imperfections, and vulnerabilities. True intimacy begins when people stop relating to each other's roles and begin relating to each other's humanity. There is also something deeply philosophical about respect. At its core, respect reflects an understanding that no person can possess another. We can love someone, we can care for them, we can share our lives with them, but we cannot own their thoughts, their growth, or their future. Every meaningful relationship exists between two independent individuals who continuously choose one another. That choice becomes especially significant in age gap relationships because outsiders often create narratives about what the relationship should mean. People may speculate about motives, assumptions, or power dynamics, yet the only people who truly understand the relationship are the two people living it. When mutual respect exists, outside judgments lose much of their power. The relationship becomes grounded in something stronger than public opinion. It becomes grounded in trust. And trust develops when both people consistently demonstrate that they value one another's with dignity. It develops when disagreements are handled with care rather than superiority. It develops when differences are approached with curiosity rather than criticism. Most importantly, it develops when both individuals feel free to continue becoming who they are. Because love is not a static experience. People evolve, goals change, priorities shift, new challenges emerge. The strongest relationships are not those that resist change, but those that create enough safety for growth to occur. In the end, successful age gap relationships are not really about age at all. They are about two people meeting each other with maturity, respect, and emotional honesty. Age may introduce them, but character is what keeps them together. And perhaps that is the lesson worth carrying forward. Lasting connection is never built on how different two people are. It is built on how deeply they are willing to understand, respect, and choose each other again and again as they continue to grow. There is one more dimension to this conversation that often receives far less attention than it deserves. We have talked about emotional stability, purpose, confidence, and mutual respect. But none of those qualities can sustain a relationship indefinitely unless they are accompanied by a willingness to continue growing. One of the most common myths about maturity is the belief that growth eventually ends. Many people assume that by a certain age, a person has become who they are going to be. Their habits are fixed. Their worldview is settled. Their identity is complete. Yet psychologically, that is rarely true. Human beings remain capable of transformation throughout their lives. In fact, some of the most meaningful personal growth occurs later in life. This matters because attraction is not simply about who a person is today. Attraction is also influenced by who they are becoming. There is something deeply compelling about being with someone who remains curious about life, who continues learning, adapting, and evolving, rather than retreating into certainty. When younger women describe being drawn to older men, they are often not describing someone who has stopped growing. They are describing someone who has accumulated experience without becoming rigid. Someone who has developed wisdom without losing openness. Someone who possesses confidence while still remaining capable of reflection. That balance is rare. Many people confuse maturity with having all the answers. Genuine maturity is often the opposite. It is the recognition that life is complex and that there is always more to learn. It is the ability to hold convictions while remaining open to new perspectives. This quality becomes especially important in relationships with significant age differences. The relationship cannot thrive if one person assumes the role of permanent teacher and the other is expected to remain the permanent student. That dynamic eventually creates distance rather than intimacy. Healthy relationships require reciprocity. An older man may bring decades of life experience into the relationship, but a younger woman brings experiences, perspectives, and insights that he does not possess. Different generations often see the world through different lenses. When both people remain curious about those differences, the relationship becomes a source of enrichment rather than conflict. Psychologically speaking, curiosity is one of the most underrated relationship skills. Curiosity allows us to remain interested in another person even after years of knowing them. It prevents us from reducing them to assumptions. It reminds us that every human being contains far more complexity than we initially would understand. The moment we believe we have completely figured someone out, we stop truly seeing them. This is why some relationships feel alive for decades, while others become stagnant after only a few months. The difference is often not compatibility. It is whether both people continue approaching each other with openness. There is also a broader philosophical lesson here. Life itself is a process of becoming. We are constantly shaped by new experiences, challenges, disappointments, and discoveries. The people who remain most vibrant are rarely those who cling to the past. They are the ones who maintain a relationship with the future. They continue asking questions. They continue exploring. They continue growing. This creates a form of vitality that cannot be measured by age. Two people can be decades apart chronologically, yet remarkably aligned in spirit because both remain engaged with life. Conversely, two people can be the same age and feel worlds apart because one has stopped growing, while the other continues evolving. That distinction is important because it shifts the conversation away from numbers and toward character. The success of a relationship is not determined by the distance between birthdays. It is determined by the willingness of both individuals to keep developing emotionally, intellectually, and personally. The most attractive older men are often not those trying to recapture their youth. They are those who embrace their age while remaining fully alive. They do not become trapped by nostalgia. They do not define themselves solely by past achievements. They remain engaged with the present and excited about the future. That energy is magnetic because it communicates hope. It communicates possibility. It communicates that growth is not over. And perhaps that is the deepest truth of all. People are drawn not to age, but to aliveness. The moment you stop focusing on how old you are and start focusing on how fully you are living, you become far more attractive, not just to others, but to life itself. As we reach the final part of this conversation, there is one theme that quietly connects everything we have discussed so far. Emotional stability, purpose, confidence, mutual respect, and continuous growth all point toward the same underlying principle: authenticity. When people think about attraction, they often focus on what they need to do to become more desirable. They ask what qualities they should display, what behaviors they should adopt, or what image they should project. But the longer I work within the world of human psychology, the more convinced I become that lasting attraction is rarely created through performance. It is created through authenticity. This is especially relevant when discussing why some younger women choose older men despite significant age differences. One of the advantages that can emerge with age is a gradual freedom from the exhausting need to prove oneself. In youth, many people spend enormous amounts of energy seeking validation. They want approval from peers, recognition from society, and reassurance that they are enough. There is nothing unusual about this. It is part of human development. But as people mature, some begin to realize that external validation is an unstable foundation for self-worth. No amount of praise can permanently resolve internal uncertainty. Eventually, a deeper question emerges. Who am I when no one is watching? Who am I when there is no audience to impress? The people who seriously engage with that question often develop a different relationship with themselves. They become less concerned with appearance and more concerned with substance, less focused on being admired and more focused on living in alignment with their values. This shift has profound effects on relationships. Psychologically speaking, authenticity creates trust. When people sense that someone is presenting a carefully constructed version of themselves, they often remain cautious. Even if they cannot identify exactly what feels off, they recognize a gap between appearance and reality. Authenticity closes that gap. It allows another person to relax because they no longer feel they are interacting with a performance. They feel they are interacting with a real human being, complete with strengths, weaknesses, contradictions, and imperfections. Ironically, imperfections often make people more relatable, not less. Many individuals spend years trying to hide every flaw, believing that attraction depends on appearing flawless. Yet genuine connection usually emerges when people stop pretending to be perfect. Vulnerability creates intimacy because it allows others to see themselves reflected in us. This is particularly important in age gap relationships. An older man who feels compelled to compete with younger men often undermines his greatest strengths. The attempt to imitate youth can create insecurity rather than confidence. What tends to be more attractive is acceptance. Acceptance of one's age, acceptance of one's journey, acceptance of the lessons learned through experience. There is a quiet confidence in a person who no longer feels the need to deny reality. Such a person communicates, consciously or unconsciously, that their sense of worth does not depend on comparison. That is powerful, because comparison is one of the great sources of human suffering. When people constantly measure themselves against others, they rarely find peace. There will always be someone younger, richer, more accomplished, or more admired. The pursuit of superiority is endless. Authenticity offers a different path. It asks us to become fully ourselves rather than a better imitation of someone else. Philosophically, this may be one of the central challenges of adulthood, not achieving perfection, but embracing reality, not becoming an idealized version of ourselves, but becoming an integrated one. The relationships that endure are often built between people who have accepted this truth. They are not seeking rescue from loneliness or validation of their worth. They are choosing connection from a place of self-awareness. They recognize that a partner can enrich life, but cannot create an identity that does not already exist. And that recognition changes everything. It transforms relationships from a search for completion into an opportunity for companionship. It allows love to become less about need and more about appreciation. Ultimately, the reason some younger women are drawn to certain older men has very little to do with age itself. It has everything to do with the qualities that emerge when a person stops chasing approval and starts living authentically. Because the most attractive person in any room is rarely the one trying hardest to be noticed. It is the one who is completely comfortable being who they are. And if there is one lesson worth carrying forward, it is this. The moment you stop performing and start living authentically, you become someone others can genuinely connect with, and someone you can genuinely respect. As we come to the final insight, I want to focus on something that is often overlooked when people talk about attraction between younger women and older men. We spend a great deal of time discussing what initially draws people together, but much less time discussing what allows them to stay together. Attraction may begin a relationship, but shared vision is what gives it direction. When two people choose each other despite a significant age difference, they inevitably encounter questions about the future, not just from others, but from themselves. Where is this relationship going? What kind of life are we trying to build? What values do we share? What do we want our days, years, and experiences together to look like? These questions matter because relationships ultimately exist in time. They are not sustained by feelings alone. They are sustained by the ability of two people to move toward a future that both find meaningful. Psychologically speaking, human beings need more than affection. They need coherence. They need to feel that the choices they make fit into a larger narrative about who they are and where they are going. A relationship becomes significantly stronger when both partners feel they are participating in the same story. This is one reason why some age gap relationships flourish while others struggle. The successful ones are rarely built solely on attraction. They are built on alignment. Alignment does not mean agreement on everything. No healthy relationship requires that. It means sharing enough core values that both people can move in the same direction even when they occasionally take different paths. For example, two people may have different hobbies, different backgrounds, and different life experiences. Yet if they share values such as honesty, loyalty, personal growth, kindness, and commitment, they often discover that those deeper similarities matter far more than surface-level, kind differences. What is fascinating is that age can sometimes distract us from noticing these more important factors. Society tends to focus on chronological differences because they are visible. Shared values are invisible. Yet invisible things often determine the success of relationships far more than visible ones. Think about the people who have influenced your life the most. Chances are, their impact was not determined by their age. It was determined by their character. It was determined by how they thought, how they treated others, and what they stood for. Relationships operate according to the same principle. A younger woman may find herself deeply connected to an older man, not because they belong to the same generation, but because they share a similar understanding of what makes life meaningful. They may value personal responsibility. They may appreciate emotional honesty. They may prioritize loyalty over excitement and depth over appearance. When those values align, the relationship develops a strong foundation. There is also a philosophical dimension to this idea. Many people spend years searching for compatibility in the wrong places. They focus on preferences rather than principles. Preferences are important, but they change. Principles tend to endure. Physical attraction evolves. Circumstances change. Careers shift. Health fluctuates. Life continuously rearranges itself. What remains relatively stable are the values that guide our decisions. Those values become the compass that helps couples navigate uncertainty together. This is why meaningful relationships often feel like partnerships rather than performances. Neither person is trying to impress the other indefinitely. Instead, they are working together towards something larger than themselves. They are creating a shared life. And perhaps this is where the deepest form of attraction emerges, not in admiration, excitement, or novelty, but in the recognition that another person sees the world in a way that resonates with your own deepest beliefs. That recognition creates trust. It creates commitment. It creates resilience. Most importantly, it creates a sense of belonging. In the end, the question is not whether two people are separated by 20 or 30 years. The question is whether they are united by purpose, values, and vision. Because age may influence a relationship's circumstances, but shared meaning determines its strength. And that leaves us with a powerful truth worth remembering. The relationships that last are not built by people who simply find each other attractive. They are built by people who choose, day after day, to build a meaningful future together. That choice, more than age, is what defines the depth of a connection.